Okay, I've got my eyes closed.
That's normal. We should try it with the lights on sometime. Oh, I was actually going to try and think of some amusing things to say to make you giggle. But I was actually enjoying being peaceful for a minute. Strange. In fact, I
It's
think I
actually
should
really
turn.
nice with
I
your eyes
just
closed.
turned. I'm going to turn Russia Today off. Hold on.
You actually look better with my
Honestly,
eyes
do.
closed.
I look better with your eyes closed.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're joining us, if you're tuning in, we're tuning in too.
We're tuning into you.
No, we're not doing that.
We're not really. We're just
That's
joking.
creepy. That's creepy and likely
That
to, and
is.
quite rightly banned for saying things like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Fact checking. We reviewed your video and found that you weren't actually tuning into people, and that it's
okay.
scientifically been proven. It's scientifically proven that you cannot tune into people. So we're putting you on the Facebook naughty step.
Okay. There's YouTube as well.
Views. And YouTube as well, yeah.
It's actually really nice, closing down some
peaceful.
of my senses. Yeah, I feel very chill.
Well, if I may reiterate the little meme I made up, we're just freestyling at the moment because we started a bit early, but the kids, like I was saying to Stephen earlier on, we are free-range organic parents, continuum, rewilding, regenerative, ancestral regeneration parents. So bedtime can be quite open.
Yeah.
But all is quiet now. All is quiet now in the M household. We can have Mr. and Mrs. M and little M, biggest M and medium M. All is quiet in the Casamunsen, live from Sunlight House tonight on the hills of Kaldashterania, bathed with a beautiful full moon, which I'm sure Mrs. M will have something to say about. Super moon or not, you're quite a poo-pooer of supermoons, aren't you? Oh, yeah. And shut a few tabs down, folks. It's the chance to close a few tabs down. If you see your mind as a browser, I certainly do. I know Mrs. M does as well. She has quite a busy mind.
I really do.
Turns out. How many tabs did you have open before the show, do you think?
Oh, loads.
And you're using...
When I had that like 20 minutes to myself today in the hammock, just like feeling the breeze and closing my eyes.
We didn't make her do it. It sounds like, the family sent you to the hammock for 20 minutes. That sounds like some sort of punishment. You actually, we were jointly agreed it was a good idea, didn't we?
It was an offering you offered to give me some quiet.
And
when
what
I
did
was
you
in the
discover?
hammock, when I was having hammock time today.
Hammock time. Ding, 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 ding. Can't touch this.
I noticed all my thoughts, as I was like drifting off, and I realized I had a song in the back of my head, like an earworm, going round and round and round. And at the end of the 20 minutes, just as I was starting to feel relaxed, I started having an argument with myself in an imagination.
Good work.
Rubbish.
Yeah, that's really honest.
Worked up. It got myself really worked up, and then came back to reality, all worked up. But
did you?
I need
Damn this hammock and this peaceful environment. It's terrible for me. Yes.
Am I still supposed to be eyes closed and relaxing? I do feel very relaxed.
It's actually becoming a little bit rude now, because I think there are a few people watching. Hi, how you doing? And welcome to Spiritual Portugal, which, with the way that the StreamYard works, I've just noticed. We've got the Archugall show, which just looks like some hieroglyphics. Well, if you look on the screen, and I don't know how this represents on people's own browsers and so on, but it just says on mine Archugall.
What?
And then you can't see the Spiritual Portugal bit, can you? Because it says live. It says how live the show's live and how long we've been doing it for and how many people are watching. And then Archugall, and then making light work out of light work.
Oh, I see the whole thing. I
Do
I
you?
don't know
You're
what's
seeing
going on.
spiritual Portugal.
I've
Well,
got a
that
bigger screen than you, that's why.
might be a metaphor. It might be that you see more of life than I do. So that could be the first metaphor of the evening.
I'll tell you what, we got a first comment in of the evening. That's David Durham. Hola.
Yeah, it's a very
Good evening.
straightforward "Hola, hola, boa
Hola.
noite" to you, and cracking full moon to come for you, David. I know,
I got a cracking
America.
full moon before we started. Carl
Yes.
said,
Well, maybe
"Have
Lee
you looked
said
at my
about
new
that.
backdrop?"
Oh,
There he was showing me his full moon. Um, I'm glad.
yeah.
I'm glad he's.
I hope that's a reference lost on most people. And I'm just going to say, for our American friends, you have a beautiful full moon to come. Not the one that Louis is talking about, thankfully. Don't spit that water. Turn away. Don't spit on the computer. Okay, it's gone. Yes, the Portugal and this part of Western Europe ahead of America, and it always will be. I hasten to add.
Or we might actually
Well,
be three quarters of a day behind.
yeah, I suppose. Yeah, well, given that the Brits designed it, I guess they're going to say that we will always be somewhat ahead. But then why didn't they just choose to be at the cutting edge rather than putting 12 hours in front and 12 hours behind? Anyway, I was distracted. It was an old speakers corner put down where a guy was debating with an American and said, "Anyway, you're 6 hours behind us, and you always will be." So I've always remembered that, and I just shared it lovingly. A bit of humour there to our lovely friend David who's tuned in tonight. With the
Oh, is
supermoon
David
to
from the
come.
US?
David is certainly in
Oh.
Chicago, I believe. He has been in Chicago and may well be again this evening. So good evening to you, David. And yes, do you want to say anything about supermoons that we're just talking about?
Oh, you're talking to me. Sorry. I
Well,
thought you were
David
talking to
can't answer
David.
that, can he?
Oh, I don't
David,
know. I
all
mean,
right.
you know David, I don't.
All right, okay. Yes, sorry. Let me be holistic and universal then. With the supermoon, because it's like the way it's done. It's a bit like the news media, isn't it? It's like everything gets worse with the
Yeah.
media. That's their job, and we've established that, haven't we? And their ultimate aim is to show the end of the world live on TV. That's the only way the media can really go.
Yeah.
And with supermoon coverage as well, you know how you see it on a Facebook meme. You got the
Mhm.
big red supermoon, the big pink supermoon, the big orange super, and it gets just getting more
Yeah.
and more super all the time. And I think you do poo-poo that a little bit, don't you?
Well, I just think it's just the latest thing to define something. Like people talk about the hunter's moon, the blue moon, the this moon, the that moon, and I think people like to have something that they can differentiate that this is a different event. There's always cosmic events going on, and yeah, I mean, all that's happened is it's slightly closer to Earth from our perspective than it is usually, and so
Mm,
people talk about it a bit like homeopathy. When you're talking about different potencies or different strengths, like you go to the supermarket or the pharmacy and you might buy super strength ibuprofen rather than normal strength. It's a little bit like that. You may well feel it more, but actually the way I also see it is if you are in a pretty bad condition in your life, you're more likely to feel the resonance of the moon because it's all about emotions. And if you're not very kind of grounded and stable, the moons will really make you swing. So I think it goes hand in hand with what's going on with us.
mm.
And also people who are born at the full moon or the new moon, they tend to have a much stronger reaction to moons, in my experience.
Oh,
They tend to be
okay,
more emotional. But yeah,
right.
I mean the moon appears to be there. I mean, it's been there the whole of my life, and I suspect it will be for the rest of my life. Um,
Yes, and so the extrapolation of
I,
supermoons
I,
is that they're
I
not just going to get bigger and bigger until all you can see is moon,
no,
the
no.
full
I
moon.
mean, it's not like what was that film with Jim Carrey in where he played God and he could make the moon bigger to romance Jennifer Aniston. He kind of like went
Oh,
a bit like you would on a iPhone screen. You go like that to
yes,
make the
yes,
photo
yes.
bigger.
Okay.
And kind of made it bigger to seem more romantic. I just think, these memes go round, and
Mm.
you know, and I think it's just to kind of create some kind of fantasy or some kind of distraction, and to make something quite mundane appear really, really strong and important.
Yes, and that's fascinating that you should say that, because in one
Because
sense it
it's
is
an everyday event. Like, I mean, it's not
well,
every day.
the word mundane comes from mundial, doesn't it? Not mundial, but mundial, as in worldly.
Worldwide, worldly.
Yeah. So in a sense, it is, you know, it is a phenomenon of the world and the world we live in.
Mm.
And in that way, it's mundane. And of course, there's magic in it too, as we know from, as you mentioned, in romance and the
Yeah.
effect that the moon has on us human beings.
To
So
me,
yes,
it's a bit like the discussion about Christmas. So, you know, lots of people say, "Oh, are you excited? You know, let's make Christmas magical." And I just think, well, every day is a moment to make life magical. And I, you know, I don't mean to sound like a party pooper, but you
you
know,
get the work though.
but, you know, like there are full moons. There are at least 13 full moons. Well, no, there are 13 full moons every year. And
Mm,
although that doesn't sound that common, you know, in your lifetime, you can have loads of them.
yes,
Um,
enough to
you know,
plot a graph with.
well, also, uh, another thing is like we are sort of catastrophizing everyday things. We are making things seem stronger and more significant. And when we do that, we're separating ourselves from actually what's natural phenomenon. You know, like we're paying too much attention to it in such a way that it becomes a big thing where, you know, we
Yes.
could just see, oh, we're in this cycle now and we can use this. And that's my thoughts, but I am a little bit of a
Well,
cynic and a mystic.
a cynic and a
And then
mystic.
David Durham, I
Well, that's
haven't
what a
seen
beautiful combination.
I haven't, yeah, a mystic and a cynic.
Yes.
Let me have a look at those comments. I was that on my Facebook thread, David?
Well, I'll find out. There are so many platforms. This is one of the great perils and challenges and actually problems of modern life, isn't it? No, it was on your Signal. I sent it to you on your Signal. Oh, I
I
thought you
don't use
sent it to me
Signal.
on Telegram. No, I'm not using Telegram so much now because I had to take that app off my phone. I sent it to you on Messenger. Oh no, I don't use Messenger. It's not private enough. And on it goes, and the whole point of the message is lost, isn't it? It tried to find out which platform it went on. So I think the answer to that is no, isn't it? And you may wish to pop the comment straight direct into here tonight
Oh,
as
on my
part of the
YouTube
discussion,
channel. Let
David.
me have a quick look.
Okay.
Um,
We'll cut and paste it, David. By all means. Oh, Simon is here tonight. Might be so. Could be someone else in the household. Good night, Louisa. Oh, Simon and Fiona here. Young fledglings to spirituality. Well, that's interesting. As in, because my theory about spirituality is you can't not be spiritual. You know, you are in some way spiritual, because that's all part of being a human being, which is also one of our discussions tonight. Do please share your definition of a human being, and I'll come back to that, because
mm.
somebody span off with the need for context with that. So I'm happy to try and give a bit of context with that. But back to your comment, Simon and Fiona. Do excuse me. Young fledglings, as in your. If you don't mind me asking, so you don't have to answer, obviously.
Oh,
But
right. I can
to
see
your
it now.
comment, oh, and you got me coming through your speaker now.
No,
That
I've
was
just
weird.
stopped it.
Oh, okay.
Um, okay.
Oh, I see. Yes, that was YouTube Live. Right. How unnerving. I think it
Um,
needs. I think David might do us the courtesy of a cut and paste, given that you haven't seen what he said there.
I've just seen them, and actually, what
Oh,
I'm
okay.
seeing is the same thing. Did you see the links I put? Oh no, that's what he's just
No,
said.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
David,
David, just
just cut
what's
and paste.
funny is I've posted it to 2 different YouTube channels.
Yes.
It would
But
really
I
help.
think he's talking
Please.
about a different link at a different time. So it's going to be quite hard to go searching. We're going to end up in
I'm
rabbit
so
holes, and we
sorry,
have enough
David.
trouble with that already.
Yeah, I'm a little bit vague. If you could help me with that, I will
Yeah,
happily answer them.
yeah. So
Yeah.
young fledglings, I'm interested in, because does that mean you are becoming active, or you're broadening your awareness, or you're choosing to study it a bit more? I think that's fascinating, because the funny thing is, I think some of the most spiritual people I've ever met have not described themselves as spiritual at all. It is a little bit of a, what would it be called? A conundrum, or a hall of mirrors, or whatever. So I'm really fascinated by that. And from my point of view, I'm kind of a bit more out of the closet. You know, I think I've always been a spiritual sort of spiritually interested and susceptible, suggestible, but I haven't always been. I've had different periods of my life where I've been full on and probably really annoying spiritual, and then other times when I've wound it back in a bit, like wound my spiritual neck in. And this is I suppose, like moons and
You've
tides.
kind of got interest. You've got involved in not cults, but you've been pulled into philosophies, haven't you, in such a way that have been life-changing?
Oh, they're cults for sure. I mean, you know, not in the worst sense that people. I mean, but you know, I've got a very broad definition of a cult anyway. But you know, I'm not. I don't take that accusation or judgment of any organisations I've been involved with badly. That's saying as much about the person saying it, isn't it, as it is about me. And it's all about the discussion, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
And
it is
that's. Did
about
you
the
just go? Ooh,
I did.
did you?
What does that say about me?
Oh, for just saying that I've been in a
Yeah,
few
yeah.
cults. Yeah. Well, I know. I think you've heard me say that, haven't you? I'm
That is
kind
what
of,
I was saying, actually.
yeah. For me, it's a bit like being on the Facebook naughty step. I see it as a badge of honor in a way that I've been brave or foolish or daring enough to step outside mainstream narratives, which I think cults often do. But then again, the mainstream narrative is quite a cult as well in its own right, isn't it?
Of
It's
course
just
it
quite
is.
a big cult. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite a start.
Simon and Fiona, what has drawn you to, like, the idea of spirituality, and how are you exploring it? I'd love to know. I'd really, really love
Mm,
to know. And
yeah.
so did you, say hello to Cindy B? So Cindy B
Absolutely.
is
Well, I
saying
didn't
that
say hello,
part
but I
of
just thought that's a very funny comment. Thank you, Cindy, for that rather worldly view. But I think we were both finding that a little bit amusing. Mark's also here. Good evening, Carl,
Hey.
Louisa and Carl. Hello, Mark. Really glad that you're here tonight. It's so nice to see people in various environments that we love to see you and talk to you in, including this one. And this is a new thing for us, the Spiritual Portugal, and keen to that you all help us shape it and make it something useful for everybody.
Yeah.
Last week it was Senga, wasn't it, who was going for a job interview?
Yeah, I wonder if she got on. We
I
must,
don't know. She's not said
finish
anything,
it.
so we might just deduce from that. I mean, she didn't. I don't know if it was Saturday or Tuesday, but she wasn't like woot or whoopee or anything like that, was she? And she'd gone quiet, so maybe she didn't get the job. But we'll see. Maybe she'll tune in a bit later on and tell us.
You'd be
One,
interested.
yeah, the one discussion theme. Oh, the first one was. I need to make a banner for this, but does anyone use soap nuts for
Do you remember
washing?
my terrible soap nut experiments?
Did it just stain all the clothes?
No, I thought I had lost my eyesight. I
That
couldn't
is
open
pretty
my
bad.
eyes. In our when we were in Devon, I bought some soap nuts
You
because
might have to explain what they are.
oh yeah, well when I was living in Bali, the local laundrettes were kind of washerwomen who did an amazing job of the laundry, and excuse me. I think I'm gonna sneeze. They would like wash everybody's laundry. They would actually sew little tabs in and stuff. But
Yeah.
they would use soap nuts, these kind of little nutty things that have a sort of saponic effect. So they soap up as you wash stuff.
Ooh.
Um, and apparently it's all very sort of like biodegradable. It's natural and it's not causing any massive issues. And so I was
Except
thinking,
blindness.
yeah.
Temporary blindness.
So I was thinking, it was back in a stage where I was trying to make my own makeup and, making deodorant and things like that. And I thought, what about shampoo? How could we make natural shampoo and cleaning products for ourselves, not just, for using in the house? And so I thought, well, soap nuts, let's see. And I looked up a soap nut shampoo recipe, which I promptly made, but it didn't put any kind of skull and crossbone type messages on this recipe, and I just happened to get some in my eye, and I've never felt anything quite like it, apart from when I did snort a tiny little bit of oregano essential oil or oregano essential oil, because sometimes if you get in a cold, and I just thought I'd just sniff the oil in to kind of knock out a cold, and then I thought I'd set like was killing myself. I thought I was going to die. So there's a couple of, botched experiments, which actually could make a
Yeah.
much funnier YouTube channel with
Well,
all
it does
my,
give it really
with
does
all
give the
my
new
hacks.
age. It gives the new
Really
age a
hacked
bad
up.
name, doesn't it?
Oh
When
yeah,
people say
totally.
admit to stuff like that, it's like, well, this is why
Yeah.
we need to regulate medicines, because there are people out there putting soap nuts in their eyes and
Yeah.
oregano in their nasal
Yeah. I didn't really put it
membrane.
in. I just had some on a tissue and I sniffed, but I sniffed really, really
Oh,
hard, and it was much
yes.
more than I was expecting. And unfortunately, if you are going to try things out, and I wouldn't say I'm a pioneer because I'm copying other people's recipes and ideas, but it was really painful, and it took probably about an hour or two for my
Yeah.
eyesight, for my eyes, for me to actually be able to open them without having
Yes.
to close them because it hurt too much. It was really painful. And
Okay.
that just
Well,
went straight down the drain.
yes. So that was in terms of our ecological laundry, not such a brilliant uh,
Which is really funny because
experiment.
actually today I bought 4 different types of
It's what
eco
reminded me. Yeah.
laundry. Yeah. Oh, is that why you mentioned soap nuts?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think this is the very kind of almost. I mean, it's quite a practical, but quite a superficial end of what might be called spiritual, new agey, or personal growth, or eco. And these things tend to get they tend to get lumped together. But I just thought it was good to attend to some of the more amusing parts of this cul-de-sac of life, the whole sort of spiritual conversation. At one end, a bit like how we discovered that when we spoke to Jim, he had 4 copies of What the Bleep. Those,
Well,
and
how
just
will cliche.
yeah, we were talking about network marketing, which often comes into people in this sort of community as well. But if that's not
Selling aloe
profound
vera.
enough for you, exactly. If that's not profound enough for you, try this tonight. And incidentally, this is an unexpected item in the bagging area. Normally, it is Tuesday night that we're going to be doing this, but as you said, Mrs. M, this is like date night for us, and once the kids are in bed, we couldn't wait to just like put a show up and have a chat together when we could actually be
Yeah.
sat on the sofa next to each other.
Mhm.
But
I
anyway,
think if we didn't do this at the end of the night, we'd probably just collapse and just fall into bed, wouldn't we? But it's,
yeah, excuse me.
yeah, quite long days at the minute.
Mm.
Yeah,
But your
so definitions
definitions,
of a
please, of being a
human
human
being.
being. Yeah, because we had a moment of profundity earlier on, didn't we? And I thought, okay, the best definition I could think of a human being is that we have enough consciousness generally to ask why am I here, but not enough to answer the question. And that's where the to me that's the bandwidth of human being consciousness is. So my dog, and I say my dog because most of the rest of the family don't tend to speak of
We don't
owning
really
him.
like him very much. I mean,
No,
he's
he's a
lovely. I'm glad
lovely
he's
dog.
alive,
He's a lovely dog, yeah,
but
but
he
they're all
smells
cat
really
people.
badly. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not a dog
well,
person.
okay, yeah, all right. Well, there's this subject for another night. Cat people and dog people. I think you can tell a lot about people whether they're cat people or dog people. But anyway, and then there are people who are neither, and the people who are both. You can
Mm,
tell a lot from that little Johari window, can't you? But yeah, the my dog doesn't know. I don't think what differentiates me from him is that he's too busy enjoying himself, generally speaking, or struggling from eating too much wild hog face and poisoning himself. But whatever state he's in it. That he just lives his life
mm,
quite brilliantly, and he doesn't reflect on it. He doesn't have self consciousness. There's a little glimmer of it, which I think is a learned behavior in some animals. Shame is something that dogs can do quite well, but I don't think it's from that same self-consciousness level that humans have. So we can be happy, and then the reason why we get a phone out and when we're looking at the moon tonight is because we can reflect on being happy about seeing the moon as well as being happy about seeing the moon, can't we? And
mm,
dogs don't have opposable thumbs or the skills to make a mobile phone yet. So that's one reason why they don't get their phone out. But the other is because they're just in the moment, aren't they? They are alive, and they don't have this human ability to reflect on themselves or anything. Just to reflect, to be aware. I suppose to be aware and be self-aware. So dogs are aware because they can see if they're aware of the food coming towards them, so they can respond, or a big person with a stick, and they can run away or whatever, or another dog. But they're not self-aware. in as much as being able to reflect on that in the way that humans do. And therein lies the beauty of the human condition, I think, and the awfulness of it. That, you know, given that we can say, be happy, and then say, oh, I am so happy. The opposite is also true, isn't it? We can also say, I'm so miserable, and then be aware in a again, another sort of hall of mirrors of misery. I'm unhappy, and I can see that I'm unhappy, and reflect on it like that. And in the same way, you know, we can have enough self-consciousness to say, why am I here? What's the purpose of human life? And that's the context for me. That's what I was hoping to get at when Jordan pulled me up on it. He said, well, that question's meaningless without some context. Does that mean, why am I here within the scheme of the universe? I don't really mind about that. And I think Tanya stepped in as well, didn't she? Said it's a context. It is one of the contextless questions. I'm not sure. You know, I think humans are
I
all
actually
about
don't care.
context.
I'm kind of interested in the process that people go through to answer that question. And like when you put that question, like, what's your definition of being a human being? I don't want to specify the context. I want people to explore it from their own perspective and make it mean what they want. Because, you know, I think we live actually in a very prescriptive world where everyone is told this is how it is, and you can answer this between, you know, in this way at this time. I really like the sort of like just leaving it so people can give us, you know, their own context, their own feeling, something that really comes from them. Because I think that's the space where real transformation comes from. You know, like someone will say something really free and spontaneous, and somebody else will be listening in and going, wow, my God, I've never thought that. You know, it's life-changing. I had some of those moments yesterday when I was chatting with Tanya, also known as TC Aila. And so we did this show yesterday about wholeness. And there were many moments in that where I was just like kind of blown away. And that does happen when I'm in her company, because she's got a very, I don't know, she's got an amazing energy around her. But again, like there wasn't a set context. We were just kind of riffing and seeing what questions were coming in and comments, and something evolves in those moments that are unscripted. That's what I like. But we've got a few people saying hello here, which I think we should. So Margarita has come in to say hello to us. Hey. And Simon's got a few comments here. So while I was working, I think my spirituality was suppressed, never getting off the mouse wheel and not taking time out to relax or thinking about anything else, always hectic and busy. Yeah, totally. And you've added thankfully slowing down now and adjusting and focusing on family. I think one of the great problems and also strategies that people have in life is to just keep really busy, isn't it? You know, because I think most of us sense that maybe something's not right, or that we're going about our life in the wrong way. There's this kind of, I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, like probably you've got something different. In fact, I'm sure everyone's got a different answer, but I was very conscious as a child that I had this little voice in my head saying, really, is that how we're going to do this? And then like in my 20s, there was this voice saying, is this all there is? You know, this Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And am I in the right relationship? And all these little promptings. And I would just work harder and faster and keep doing more of it so that I drowned out that voice. I couldn't hear that voice. And is it a voice for you? You know, what is it, that sense that made you, Simon, think, actually, I need to take some time out and relax? How did you know it was time to do that?
Yeah,
like,
I'm interested
what
in
is
that
that
too.
voice? Is it your instinct or is it your intuition? I mean, Tanya and I were talking about intuition versus instinct, and she was saying yesterday that the instinct is really based out of a fear, you know, so it's a kind of
Survival.
behavior that, it's a survival, whereas intuition is that knowingness that comes in.
Well,
So I'm
actually,
really I love that.
it connects with what you were saying about being a cynic and a mystic. You know, I think cynicism arises out of instinct,
Yeah.
and mysticism arises out of intuition, and they're
Yeah.
both very, very useful, because, you know, if you can't survive, you can't be very mystical. So there's no harm in having a almost like a cynical worldview to allow yourself to persist in the world, and then having persisted, like sort of a hierarchy of needs. Once the hierarchy of survival, our greatest perceptions sit on top of the fact that we've survived in any moment, don't they? Because
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to. Well, I don't know. I can't speak from any remembered experience, but I can't see how people can have great perceptions based on being dead. But I'm open to the comments that discuss or suggest otherwise on that.
What have
But
you put
certainly
in
in
the
this
comment
world.
field, Carl? 'Cause it's massive, and it's come out like 4 times because of the channels we're going on. If you, as in anyone, want to get very mental and logical about it, indeed, there will always be something missing. If, however, you or anyone prefers simplicity, then there is nothing missing. So it really is all about which that's Tanya, isn't it? Which
That is
perspective you're approaching
Tanya,
it from,
TCAELA.
and all perspectives are valid. Yeah.
It's a continuation of that earlier thing about the need for perspective.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I get it. I get. I think Jordan's point is good, and it depends exactly how you want. If it's a debate, and if it's going into the scientific and academic context, then those things do get messy without some boundaries, don't they? But then the old freewheeling New Agers aren't too fussed about that, are they? They can cope or aren't very concerned about having quite an open context. But you can't have a contextless discussion, because you just being in the same room is a context, or just being on the internet is a context. But I see
yeah.
what he was getting at, and I see what Tanya's getting at as well. There is a way of communicating, I think, where you're not too pernickety about it. And I prefer the latter, I must say. And I'm sure to my cost at times, and to other people's annoyance at times, without the constant check on, well, what's the context here? And what did you mean by that bit? And so on. It's just, I start to feel like I'm suffocating if there's too much of that. But for other people, they probably feel like it's suffocating if there isn't enough of it to
Yeah.
guide and to help them feel safe or to feel productive in the conversation. I would like to say, sorry, I glossed over a bit, saying good evening to Margarita and maybe Andy, or both there. So good evening to you both. And with that thing Simon was talking about, suppressed, as in you heard the voice, Simon, and you said, okay, this can wait, or you didn't realize until afterwards, because that's another thing, isn't it? You can often recognize after the event that you did that, as in with retrospect. You can do that, or you can actively avoid it at the time.
Well, I
So
mean,
thank you for that.
how did you step off and into the School of Philosophy, in your 20s, Carl? What
Oh,
was
just being a miserable little twat, really. I mean, that was that basically. But that wasn't the first. That wasn't really what was it? Let me see. In my early 20s. Well, how I have it, the story that I have in my mind, my own guiding narrative, is of being of experiencing quite a lot of worldly success quite quickly, and seeing that they didn't give me the things I thought they would. So I was quite lucky to be involved in a band that was quite quickly successful, and it was great because I was very untalented, and it was just a trick, not a trick, a kind of twist of fate that worked very well in a set of circumstances that helped me to live quite a glamorous and exciting life.
I might just,
And
slip the video into the comments so people can have a look if they want.
well, that's great. You gave everyone a laugh at my expense, why don't
No,
you?
no, it's
But
really good.
part of that was like, this is what, I thought, like, being in a band and having some success, and what seemed like, I mean, it wasn't massively materially successful, but I did get a taste of the high life from it. And it just didn't cause any happiness. And sometimes
Sorry.
it's very first world. And that's the first world warning. We can't talk outside of our, again, it's a contextual thing. These first world people sat on Facebook talking about spirituality. We recognize that's a very privileged position to be in. No question about that. And the thing I'm talking about was a very privileged position to be in, and it is a very great privilege to be able to say money doesn't make you happy, because you obviously have had some and realized that. These days, as I said to, I think, Fire Dave when I talked to him on Tuesday morning, you know, it is probably nicer to cry inside a car than it is sat at a bus stop. That said, but
I've done both.
which did you prefer?
Actually, I think the train station
Better
or
class of
bus
compassion.
station.
Better compassion,
Um,
probably, isn't it?
no, it kind of like met my mood. You know, like if there was a meme for
Oh,
being
1980 style.
disheartened or being really, you know, almost like an Athena print
Oh
without
yeah.
some kind of
Okay.
garage mechanic and a baby. It was like the Athena print of sorrow and
Young girl, her mascara running,
yeah,
probably
yeah,
in the
yeah.
rain as well,
Totally. I had
heartbroken
a
at
massive
the railway
story about
station.
it. Yeah. Like
Oh,
if you're gonna
bless
be
you.
upset like that, you might wanna be seen.
Yeah, of
Just
course. Okay,
I
so
wanted I wanted the whole world
it's
to know what I was feeling.
it's not as comfortable, but it's a better look.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
I wanted to we've got a few comments in here, and so Fiona has said, "Oh, I'm still up and you beautiful people alive. Got to love the moon energies interrupting sleep patterns as usual." I find that as well. You're the
There you
same,
go.
aren't you? It is like that, isn't it? So thank you for joining us.
No, I don't think it's the moon for me. I mean, I just find any excuse to interrupt my sleep patterns. Not the moon. I'm happy to accept the moon as one of them. Yeah.
So Mark's saying, for me, as life changes have happened, relationships, children, tragedy, and life learnings, I've had to stop, take a breather, and reflect or refocus.
Well, that sounds very
Yeah,
profound, Mark. Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of life does that to us, doesn't it? Without wanting to sound trite,
yeah,
without us, you know, I don't know. It just takes a very well connected to what I was saying earlier on about, you know, what it is to be a human being, i.e., the capacity to ask questions but probably not answer them, of the great, you know, the biggest questions for mankind. I think that's a really difficult thing. You know, saying it suddenly made me feel very sorry for humanity, that was how we had to live. And this might connect with what you're saying here, Mark. If I can pop that back on, you know, it is, we can't live as human beings without living and experiencing things. It's not like life is we want it to be a science lab, don't we, where we could just do a dry run, or like the Matrix, just run a program and experience it. Us humans, and again, I know, you know, I'm talking from a sort of first world context here, but it's the same for everybody. Um, that, or, you know, first world, even that is just like some sort of condescending comment, isn't it? But as in some of the most privileged people in the world talking about their problems, I get it. And all humans, I would suggest, have to do this. They have to live, they have to learn through experience. And that's really hard, you know, like the broken-hearted teenage girl at the railway station, like the guy who thought he was going to be happy when he got successful and his fortune got destroyed. And tragedy, as you're describing there, and the ups and downs of life, and you know, family and everything. We can't do that without doing it, can we? And it's no wonder, if you know, if there's a God, if you believe in Christ, if whatever your thing is, whatever the benevolent force is, you would think that the benevolent force would love you all the more because of how you have to be and live as a human being. And that's how we might relate to each other, mightn't it? Mightn't it? You know, we know that it's hard to be a human being because we have to live everything out loud and live and in our own experience. So it's hard enough anyway at the best of times. And then when tragedies happen, like when you see people in Afghanistan, or you see people in Haiti at the moment, there's a double blow. Not only is human life an up and down of beautiful and difficult, then they have these terrible circumstances to contend with as well. We could all give each other a whole lot more, you know, time out, couldn't we? And just be so much more compassionate for ourselves and each other, knowing that that's what we have to go through. But for some reason, we don't seem to. But anyway, thank you, Mark, for sharing that. And it's such a good
yeah.
cameo, isn't it? Of you know, a condensed view of how it is that life experience causes you to, like you say there, stop, take a breather and refocus and just reflect on that and find out maybe a new way to live or be,
Mm.
in the face of that. So
I
yeah.
I want to refer back to your earlier comment about like it's like the pyramid, getting all of your structures safe and grounded. You know,
Mm,
you were talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs there, weren't you? You know, and the theory is that you can't really have a spiritual experience until you've got certain things in place, because like your base needs are very much like food, water, and shelter. Then above that, it will be like income and like resources. And then above that, you'll like good health. And I mean, I don't know the exact order, I can't remember it from when I was studying it, but right at the top, there's spirituality and purpose and the sense of connection,
Self-actualization.
self-actualization.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's, I think, when we're talking about like cynicism versus mysticism, I mean, at my heart, I know I'm a mystic. And an intuitive, and I feel very connected to life, and I see the magic everywhere. But at those times when my security isn't very assured, the cynic in me comes out, because without that, it all kind of collapses, or it's much harder to focus. But then when you were talking about tragedy, then I was thinking about purpose. And one of the things that really struck me was there are some times in my life where life has seemed, all of my senses have seemed sharpened and more acute, like colors a little bit brighter, and feelings felt so much more. And those things that have seemed sharper have been the extreme highs, but also the tragedies. In fact, the tragedies have possibly been more colorful. And during that time, even though I've been crazy miserable and like in a place of sorrow or shock or something like that, in those moments, I have this sense of purpose in these moments, because it kind of brings you to your knees and everything falls away, because in that moment, what's important to you. Like when you lose something, what is or what was important to you. And I also think when life gets really, really good and you're at the pinnacle of it, you feel very connected to what you really want, and everything else falls away. So in those two moments, everything seems to fall away. And when that happens, it's like my filters come off and I see, am I seeing reality correctly? Is everything brighter? Is everything louder? Does it have a better resonance? I don't know, but that's just how I code it. And
I've got a
I wonder
theory
how
on that.
go
I've
on.
got a theory, but let's
I'm unsurprised
open.
by that.
Yeah, and I asked you today, didn't I? Have I got many theories? And you're
I
like,
said, yes.
yeah.
Yeah. What's
Simon,
your theory?
getting into artificial routines and environments of indoor factory work, started thinking I was just a number in the department. After many years, just wanted to reconnect with life and people.
Yeah.
And reconnecting with the world outdoors through hobbies and interests from my childhood. Oh, that's lovely.
That is
That full
amazing.
circle, isn't it? Yeah. Well,
'Cause
well played.
children know what's right for them, don't they?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
have
It's
an
a good
instinct.
place to
What
start.
is it that you've rekindled since your childhood?
And I hope it wasn't pulling legs off spiders, as some children do, Simon. Um, oh dear,
Daddy long legs for me.
I wasn't
Very nice.
looking for an admission there, but you might get forgiveness tonight from these people, but you might not.
Yeah.
Being human and not being a robot, says
Mm.
Simon. Yeah, it makes sense. And David's adding, what's crazy to think about? You're never actually touching anything in this world. The repulsion of the electromagnetic force is too strong for us to overcome. The repulsion or the attraction, David, or both, because I guess it could work both ways, that couldn't it? But I'd like to come back to that, David, because I think you can't, again, in the way that you can't not be spiritual. I don't think you can't not touch things. And I understand what you mean. There is a distance with the digital, but there's still an interface where you can put your attention. And so if we could return to that, I'd really love to.
We're going into like quantum physics there, aren't we? And I love that.
I would never say that I'm going into quantum physics, because that to me is definitely on the bingo card, isn't it? When anyone who's not actually wearing a white coat uses the word quantum, they probably shouldn't, should they? But and this is probably going back 10 or 15 years, but people started using the word quantum, didn't they? Quantum healing, quantum recipes for vegans or whatever. And it's like, okay,
I've
we
never
get it.
seen that page, because I would look at that if I saw that, if that came up.
Quantum, yeah, what quantum veganism?
I'd give it a go, or quantum
We
water
could have
drinking or something.
you could have Schrodinger's meat. There's only meat in it. Is there meat in it or not? When you when you look away, there's not meat in it anymore, or
Yeah.
or there's cat in it. which vegans obviously wouldn't want.
Yeah.
Agree, Louisa. When I have a purpose or clarity of direction, then when I have purpose, then I'm just on the treadmill working to live. Okay, I think I get the gist there, Mark. But yeah, the purpose and clarity is what it becomes clear. But I mean, that can happen on the treadmill, can't it? I mean, that's what I was hoping to pick up on with what you're talking about of these moments of clarity, and they can come in moments of great joy or moments of great misery. What I think happens there is the noise falls away.
Yeah.
And that's what mindfulness and meditation is about, isn't it? It's having the noise fall away, and then not necessarily needing a joyous or miserable situation it's like shocking yourself in a way, but without having a shock. Because I think it is possible, and I remember this with when my father died, the shock of that, and often with bereavement, you get a shock event, don't you? And people speak of this, how things become more finely tuned in the vacuum after, where everything suddenly, where your normality is smashed by a certain news and meaning for you. You can hear a pin drop, can't you? And everything seems larger and realer. And that, I think, is because that shock, the thing you've been dreading all your life in a way, in how we have these things, is suddenly occurring in a way that you wished it wasn't, and is so profound and powerful that everything's turned up, magnified in a way I think you just described,
Yeah. That was how I
And yeah, and that will obviously happen, or not obviously, but that could happen to humans in those situations. But I think it's also what people are trying to get to with mindfulness and meditation, is to have the noise drop away in a more sustainable way, such that
Yeah.
the brightness is there, and the whatever the psychedelic experience is without the psychedelic enhancement. All of that, everything seems to be heading towards that, doesn't it? Except we keep away from it by being on the treadmill or whatever. We do a lot. It's funny, us humans do a lot to keep ourselves away from our glory, as is, it's a big kind of cliche quote written by Marianne Williamson, accredited to Nelson Mandela. Our greatest fear is how amazing we are, to paraphrase that. And we do a hell of a lot to hide from our amazingness, and find hell of a lot of distractions. And certainly death and destruction seems to bring that, or can bring it, as much as happiness can.
I love that and agree with that. Absolutely, totally. Just picking up on what Mark was saying, I'm just on the treadmill, working to live. There have been times when I've had a very kind of simple existence, and actually I've been happier. And like when I left school, I was supposed to go to university, but I didn't bother. I just kind of like packed my bags and moved out to France. I gave my parents like a day's notice, and I just got on a train randomly, just decided where I was going to go. And I found myself within like a week, I was working on a campsite. And, within a couple of months, I'd been placed on a really lovely campsite in a really sunny part of France. And I just had this like feeling of utter bliss. I was just really living a great life, and there was nothing particularly strong about it. There was nothing opulent or luxurious about it, but there was something about the experience I was going through that just felt very joyful. And for me, and it won't be the same for everybody, but it was being in the fresh air and being in a place where I felt free. And so my reality there was, I was 18, working as a rep on a campsite, and my days was just to get up, and I would be really simply dressed with a pair of little Converse on. This is how long ago it was. I had a little Walkman with a cassette plate, like a Rolling Stones cassette, or it'd be David Bowie, and I'd be playing them back to front. I would be walking down the road, smoking to the campsite where I was going to be cleaning it on the day. And it was just really sunny. And I was just like going in, airing out these tents, giving a good clean, listening to music, just feeling completely myself. Another great memory where I just felt like everything was right in the world was when I was about 15 or 16. I just remember walking to school one day and just the light was right. I felt free. So those moments where worry ceased to be, and where I feel like I'm, you know, maybe steering my own ship and independent and just feeling really cool about it. They're my best moments. And it doesn't matter. Like there's absolutely nothing special going on. I think probably what is special about that is that in those moments, I don't want to be special. In those moments, I'm so free that I don't care who knows me, what they think of me. I'm just absolutely me and reveling in it. And I wonder if that's the same for everybody else.
So I recognise it. I didn't have the same outfit or the same soundtrack, but I think we've all been there,
Yeah,
haven't we?
you'd have something jazzy, wouldn't you?
Well, not in those days, but it would have been probably a bit sort of 80s. But yeah, I mean, I totally get it, and that is being. I mean, that's not being special. That's kind of being one with the special, isn't it? You know,
I
that
don't know.
and the distractions are fewer. I would hope for teenagers until we take on the garments of care and
Mm.
consideration and worldliness. I hope that the teenagers do still have feelings and moments like that of
Feelings of freedom.
elated,
Yeah.
and ecstatic aliveness, and think and know that that's possible just with a bit of music, fresh air, and
Mm.
freedom, and they don't have to
Yeah, I mean, I
do
used to just
loads
get
of
on my
other stuff.
bike and cycle up like 40 kilometers to the nearest like nightclub. My and it was just a really free life, just like cycling through France, stopping when I wanted to, saying hello to people, and great
Or
feeling.
bonjour.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really great. We should say hello to Jacqueline Branco, who's joined us tonight. Oh,
yeah.
um,
Who keeps doing
please.
that?
I don't know, that's me and you, isn't it? Stop it.
You do it. You do it.
Good
Okay.
evening to you both. Good evening to you, Jacqueline. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. I kind of read that very quickly as good evening to your broth, but I
Gary's
definitely
here.
need to get some glasses, I think. Oh, it's yes. Okay. Look at
Mr.
that.
Austin, thank you for joining us.
Look at that. I'd like to say, Gary, that is yes, that is the moon, but it's the light in the hallway. But it could be tonight. I mean, it's so profound. Um, but yeah, and I think you've got a
Is that
touch of the
the
old.
moon shining on your face there, Gary, in that photo?
Well, I think Gary's got a touch of the old hairy hands tonight in the full moon. Well, let's see what news reports come in from Alpha Acra tonight with the big full moon over there. I mean, I bet it looks amazing. We know
Yeah.
what Gary's landscape is like, and I'm sure it's a real treat over that way as well.
Mm.
And Jacqueline CDM is here as well. Jacqueline
Hey,
CDM, boa noite. And
thanks for joining us.
what is it about the Silver Coast, Costa do Prato and Jacqueline's? We have
Mm.
Jacqueline with us here. And we have Jacqueline CDM, we have Jacqueline Branco. What's that all about, you ladies? Is there some numerological thing there? I wonder that's going on. Not numerological, but you know what I mean. There's some sort of resonance, isn't there? A vibration to do with Jacqueline's. David, this. You and I, we have a lovely little frisson, I think, with our respective sort of understandings of the world.
I'm
I
sure
know
there's an
yours.
electromagnetic reason for that as well.
Yeah, that's right. He's a scientific guy, I think. He's a logical guy, a rational man. Sensation of touching is just the force of electron clouds repulsing each other. Okay, David. Now, I'm sure if you whisper that in your wife's ear, at a certain moment of great pleasure, that's going to kill the moment, isn't it? If I did that to you, Mrs. M, I suppose would depend how I said it, right? But if you
Mm.
were, let's say, if you flicked your hair back in the most alluring way as I caressed you gently, and I said, "It's only just the force of electron clouds repulsing each other. Calm
Yeah,
down.
and we're like 99% thin air.
Kids are asleep. Kids are asleep. Yeah, we're mostly made up of nothing. Don't get yourself too worked up." This is what I'm saying, David. That human beings have yes, of course, on a scientific level, that may well be what's happening, and greater
But
men
hey, Carl,
than
this is where
me.
science and spirituality meets, isn't it? Because
Well,
actually, if you
that's
turned
what you
around
whisper in my ear. That's what
no, no, no.
you whisper in my ear at that moment. Spirituality is about to meet that science, big boy.
No, no. If you were to turn around the idea that, hey, we're 99% space, whilst you're caressing me, you could actually turn it around and just say, we're infinite. We're infinite beings. Can you feel?
Yeah.
I mean, it would sound really cheesy. Like,
But
can
you've
you
got
feel
to
the
think
infinity?
about that. You see, this is my beef with these science guys. He said, "Oh, they never stop thinking, do they? They never stop thinking." It's a bit like Russell Crowe in A Brilliant Mind. When he goes over to his wife to be and says, well, this is the bit where I ask you to have a drink with me, and you say yes, and then we go back to my place and we have sex or something like that. It's really like awful and funny, and just the worst chat up line ever. And to him in his sort of highly Aspergic state, I think, and I hope that's not a wrong kind of description of that, but that's the depiction is of an extremely rational man who he lives with a very different consciousness, not neurotypical, that's the word, isn't it, or phrase. And he says this to his wife, and she gets the measure of him and loves him anyway, thankfully, because of that. But this is the trouble with the thinkers, isn't it? Is that they think their way out of or away from the intuitive ecstasy of life, which is in the moment. So you can't be in the moment if you're thinking about what's going on, can you? If you have that thought, these are just my electron clouds repulsing. That's not momentary and real as real can be, is it? It's an observation of what's going on. It's a theory about what's going on, and even if that's only microseconds behind reality in the moment, it's still the past. It's still the past coming in. It's still a theory. And then your woman might, I'm talking man woman situation here, the situation I think that David and I share is that if your woman is seeing a look in your eye where you're reflecting on a scientific theory when really you should be focusing on her, you're going to get yourself in some trouble there, my friend. But
Yeah, I think you made an assumption there that just because David said
I
something,
always do with David. I always do with
something
David.
scientific or
Yeah.
that could be of interest, you've made that. It sounds like you've made that mean that he's always in his thoughts. He might not be.
He's my straw man though for scientists.
And you know
That's
what? Well,
yeah.
I hope you carry that mantle well, David, of being the straw man of science on this show. But
No, that's what I'm. I'm not proud
like
of it.
if his missus is a thinker, and if your assumption about him is
Oh
correct, that
yes,
he
yes,
is a
yes, yes.
thinker, then that will
Yeah.
be romantic
Oh, of
because they'll
course.
be
No,
speaking
so
the same
forgive me.
language.
Forgive me. I'm just taking advantage of the situation here, and
Yeah,
I'm taking out my beef with science guys on David, which is not fair at
yeah,
all, is it?
that's not cool.
No, I'm sorry. I withdraw all of that mostly. But yes, that would be. I mean, yeah. I mean, a couple of geeky people, scientist people who would just
Geeky.
could.
Look, are you listening to the language you're using?
I know, but I'm just
We're
using the
geeks.
words.
We're all geeks. In fact,
I know.
Fiona, look at Fiona's comment here. Fiona, I'm
Yeah,
not saying Fiona's a geek, by the way, but here's her comment. It takes real bravery. It takes real bravery to know you don't fit in the system or machine and step off. I
yeah,
did, and I've never looked back. Yes, there are tough times, but I wouldn't change anything. I'm loving life, the good
yeah,
and the tricky bits.
yeah.
Can the commenter who says he's stuck see a change in his future?
How lovely. There's a hypnotherapist
Yeah.
speaking, right? Yes, very good. I see what you did there, Fiona, and that's absolutely true. So that's to Simon, I think that comment's to Simon there. And I wasn't saying David and his wife are geeky. I'm just saying that if two scientifically minded people got excited about the thought of their electron clouds repulsing each other, that's all well and good, isn't it? Because they've got a shared
Yeah, of
language,
course.
a love
Yeah,
language, I suppose. If they think
yeah.
in those terms of, oh man, our electron clouds are really kind of vibing now. But they wouldn't say
But
vibing
again,
because that's
I
not
mean,
very
doesn't a lot
quantifiable.
of that just depend on our definitions of what it is to be human? Like some of
Mm,
us are so in our bodies that, our only terms of reference are very physical.
mm.
Um, Go on, read
Sorry,
out Gary's comment.
I meant to put a different comment up, and do want to. I did
Oh,
see
go
your
ahead.
earlier post, Gary. But let's work our way
Let's go to
towards that.
the comments. Go on. Are
Yeah,
you going to do it?
yeah, I will, because we keep just. I put it on, then you put it on, and it goes off again, doesn't it? So
Well,
we
I'll just
acknowledge.
check that we don't miss anyone out. Okay.
All right, so we acknowledge your
Done that.
bravery there, Fiona. Yeah, and I know you've done it, but I just think it's really extra important to acknowledge people who've taken the step. because in some ways it's easy to stay on the treadmill, isn't it? Because you at least have some element of security with that, and you're part of a bigger group of people, and you can take some security in the crowd with that. And even if your soul is, you feel that your soul is being roasted by that, you still have some comfort, and that means a lot to people. So big love to the people who are thinking about it or who've done it, like Fiona has. I think that's profound. Simon, after leaving the factory with the noise in the background, this is poetic. You can hear that happening, can't you? I sat and see it, in my mind's eye. I sat down next to the river with my fishing gear, hearing the sounds of nature in a peaceful environment. First time it was in 15 years. Bliss. I mean, I think we can feel that, Simon. That's a beautiful moment, and that's why I think fishing is the second biggest pastime, certainly in the UK, because it's meditative, isn't it? And you're out in nature. The fishing is almost a byproduct, isn't it, of that collateral sort of hobby. To the Jacquelines, you see, the Jacquelines are here saying hello to each other. I have to say, my brave didn't come till I was past 50 and severely broken, now 55 and healing, Fiona. Again, taking our hats off to you.
Yeah.
What sort of hats the new agers wear? I'm taking off my little
Man ponytail. Your man
yeah,
bun.
possibly. I was probably not the best headwear to be thinking about that, but often it was the Afghani style cap, wasn't it? That your hippie guy would be wearing. But I'm thinking, yeah, I'm not sure. Oh no, I know, a little hat, a little cap made of the material of my spiritual cushion. You see that? That's what I've got my bottom. You know those hats, don't you? It's like a sort of a cap spiritual guys wear, who like to wear a waistcoat as well. So I'm doffing my spiritual cap to you, Fiona. I think it is amazing, and we want to know. That's the sort of material. That's the sort of material. It wouldn't suit my head shape at all, but that's the kind of vibe. There she goes. Proper mystical business. Goes beautifully with your hair, that one. Yeah.
How about the colours?
Quite extraordinary.
I look like someone we know.
I'm trying to think who that might be. Are you thinking or are you feeling? I don't know. Is that a general question for everybody? Have you got a soap nut in your eye? You're right.
I was giving you a clue as to who I was looking like with the.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yes.
Are you thinking?
Are you thinking or are you feeling?
I like to think I'm doing both.
Hold on. Do you hear what you just said then? I like to think
I'm
you're doing both. Yes. Whereas you might have said, I feel like I think a little bit sometimes.
Well, the funny thing is, I don't know if you all know about Myers-Briggs testing. Like there's lots of different personality tests you can do for work and stuff. I spent quite a few years working in and out of human resources and training departments when I was working in corporate, and the Myers-Briggs testing tests you on 4 matrices or 4 polarities, and you get these initials. So you might hang on, let me think. What am I? So there's an EI, where it tests you to see if you're extrovert or introvert. Then there's an NT, which is, are you intuitive or thinking? No, I and an S, intuitive or sensing.
You haven't prepared this
no, this is off my head. And then there's then there's thinking and feeling, which is another polarity. And then there's perceiving or judging. Like, are you a stickler for schedules? Are you a lot more relaxed? And actually, when I do the tests, I'm always right on the cusp in between the two. So I'm really very much like thinking and feeling, and I am actually more feeling. But that's really since I've become a mum. And you change ever so slightly, or you can change.
I think when I last did it, I got the farmer type, the EIEIO.
Actually, you got the performer type.
Did I? Oh, when Liz did it, we did, because Liz, she stayed with us, didn't she, and ran us through that. Liz, hello, where are you? The sensation of touch usually brings about the manifestation of spiritual ectoplasm. It's the scientific analysis of intimacy is going to a new level here. Thank you for that, Simon. You're a lucky man when you say usually. Sounds like you've really relaxed off the treadmill with that comment
Yeah.
there. So Gary, it's been a very spiritual day today. I wondered who you were talking about when I saw your post earlier on, mate. We celebrated the life of one of our friends at her home. Her partner sprinkled her ashes around her chosen tree in the beautiful garden she created. All the time we were there, a beautiful swallowtail butterfly danced around the tree. It's always amazing when that happens, isn't it?
Mhm.
And the people present as well. Strange because there were so many other plants that it could have gone to. Very poignant, very moving. And that it's those moments, isn't it, where you think, this is the extra element, isn't it? There's more to us
Mm.
than body and mind, and there's something else going on here. When I remember when I had to put my dog down and drove with tears in my eyes down the motorway, and a rainbow appeared in the sky.
Mm.
Same sort of thing. And when, yeah, actually going back to when my dad died as well, we had, like, what did we have?
You had a condom wash up
Fuses
on the sea,
blowing.
did you?
No, that's when I put his ashes in the sea. The condom washed up on next to his ashes, and we just said, that's what he would have wanted. But what are the chances of these
But you're
sorts of
right.
things
Like,
happening?
the day your dad died, was also the day, or well, he died in the same 24 hours as our first son was born.
Mm.
And so you were out of the house, and then I went to put the kettle on with a newborn baby, and obviously not holding him at the time. Put the kettle on, and all of a sudden the fuse went, the electricity went out, and then later you confirmed that your dad had died at that time. And
Yeah,
there was an old man that I knew, I was very, very close to, and sort of did a bit of like neighbourly nursing for, and visited him in hospital for the best part of 9 months. And so I was really connected with him, and I spent like the last 24 hours by his side, chatting with him and stuff. And in the end, the Macmillan nurses said, "Look, you need to go home because sometimes people need to be on their own to pass away." And I got home and hopped into bed, and then all of a sudden I woke up, turned my light on, and the bulb blew. And in my head, I heard "out like a light," and then the hospital phoned and confirmed that he'd passed. So I
amazing.
really do think, Gary, that at these times, if you've got eyes to see and notice these patterns, that there are almost like messages or signs that we are living in a universe that we don't fully understand. There are veils that often, I think, are in front of our eyes, and I think in those moments of the clarity that you get at those moments where like life drops away and you see things really clearly, all of a sudden you pick up on those patterns. I think that's just my little two
I would
penny.
add to that, it's beyond understanding. And
Yeah.
every time human understanding increases, we tend to have this, the accompanying belief that the universe is getting bigger. We understand more of what we were trying to understand, and now that we realize there's more to understand as well. So it's like a
Yeah.
moving feast, isn't it? That we just eat a little bit, and then there's loads more food, and you keep eating, and more food keeps appearing. To use that analogy, but Gary, thank you for sharing that, and I
Mm.
hope that sounds like a really beautiful moment, and lots of love to you, mate, and Linda,
Yeah.
and to those people who don't know, but this is the hardest, and isn't it amazing? The hardest and a moment like we were talking about before, where the most moving, beautiful thing can occur as
Yeah.
well. That in that shock and vacuum, or whatever it is. Yeah, that I've had it as shock, where everything just stops for a moment, and I think bereavement, and people passing away can be so much like that, or certainly our experience of being with that. So, a self-confessed INFJ in the house tonight.
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to reply to it. I didn't mean to put it on. I didn't mean to take Gary off. I'm an INFP, so it's very nice to meet you, Cindy.
Mm.
So Cindy is
Would you get on with
intuitive.
each other? Would you,
Yeah,
if you met, would you immediately hit it off? Do you think on that basis?
yeah, because she's a fellow feeler. She's an empath.
Right.
Um, and she'd probably be a bit more organized than I am. So,
Yeah.
she might make the tea and we chat and stuff. But
Or
yeah,
decide
she's
which pub you're going to.
introverted, trusting, feeling.
Yeah.
and, you know, with quite a lot of integrity, I'd say.
Yeah, cool.
She's a good egg.
And Simon, thank you, Fiona. There, lovely job. David, this is great. Have you considered purposefully taking control of your mind to influence the way your brain matter adapts the world around us? So didn't we all do
Yeah.
that as kids? Try and move something
I
like
used to.
okay. What you did actually tried to do it, or you did it?
I was convinced that I did do it, but
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I mean,
as a
I used
as a
to
kid
I used to
myself.
have like kind of not poltergeist type things going on in my bedroom at night, but I used to notice that, like, I mean, I used to be able to make a pendulum swing, but I think anyone can do that. But I put my my necklace over something and then would stare at it until it moved.
Well, I did that as well as a kid. I thought I'm going to move this book, and then it didn't move, and then you think, okay, I need something lighter. What can I? I'll move a tissue instead. That still doesn't move, and then you kind of cough
There you
and
go.
yeah, there you go, we've done it, perfect. And then you know,
Well, like with the chain, you know, it's quite light, and it was all I did was like just focus. I mean, we know somebody, we actually know somebody who was at our wedding who has levitated before.
oh
You know,
yes, yeah.
we know people who've managed to like not bend time. I guess it's a bit like bending spoons, or you know, like making
Exactly, I was going to say that. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's the age that I had my foot on something warm, and I thought, had Jimmy left a present in the living room? It's just a power supply, nothing to worry about. Um, the what was I going to say? Yeah, I grew up in the age of Uri Geller, and of
Yeah.
course, you know, this is when that kind of phenomena was first coming
Phenomenal.
in
Do-do-do.
into the popular culture, you know,
Yeah.
and so people, you know, I think school canteens must have hated that part of
Mm.
human history where every spoon got bent by school kids, having seen that on the telly the night before when there were
But I
only
mean,
three channels.
there are places where people practice that kind of thing, and you know,
Yeah, but what
they
for? I
might.
mean, what's the point? Yeah,
Well, no,
I
actually,
think.
there's a big point actually, because you know, there are I know of people who feel like um they have got skills
Hmm.
and they know that they can do things, but can't do them here. It's like people have got this like memory of having superpowers. Like
Oh right, yeah,
I always wonder why there are so many films out there and like rich threads of themes about people who have intuitive or super strength or this, that, and the other. And there are countless stories around the world of people who do phenomenal things in a moment, you know, when they're not thinking about it, like when there's danger. Someone, you know, I've read a story of where somebody like just literally moved a car to free somebody.
yeah,
And yet you wouldn't actually be able to do that if you were in your full rational mind.
of
But
course,
in this moment, all of a sudden, all of the energy was inside this person. They knew what they needed to do and how to do it. And so
yeah.
there are people out there that feel like they have part of their brain locked up. I feel like that. I'm really convinced that there are things I can do, or I have a sense of it. And I've always had that sense of it, that I could move things with my eyes or go like this and, you know, like laser beams or something. Do you know what I mean, though? That sense that
I do, but
we are
it's you know
more than what
it's
we are.
important, yeah, and it's important that we don't have that happen as well, isn't it? Because
Well,
we do have to have a consensus, a consciousness consensus as
yeah, but there is this consensus that we're all kind of, um, I don't know. I'm not entirely. I mean, about this whole story of what it is to be human.
mm.
I think I think we're the only species here that is unnatural. And what I mean by that is
Oh
we're the
man,
only species that doesn't have its own, that doesn't know its own user manual. Like every animal, every
yeah,
plant
that's
knows
right.
itself. It knows exactly what to do. It knows exactly what food to eat, when to eat, how to get it. It knows how to sleep, how to build its own nest. Um,
But that's
we're the only
we
species that
yeah,
needs to cook food
yeah,
that
yeah, I know that, but
is
we're
sensitive
the only
for.
one. Yeah, okay, but that's because we've used our self-consciousness again, isn't it? What would it be like if we heated it up? Oh, it tastes nicer like that. possibly. You know,
Yeah,
we've done these things because of
I
our
I
reflective capability, right?
I wonder if we're under some kind of collective amnesia,
Of
or
course we
that
are.
there's something that we are much bigger than who we think we are. It
Yes.
appears that there's some really big gaps in our history and in our knowledge, and that we've been able to do really wonderful things in the past that we can no longer do.
Well,
Um,
very possibly, either archetypally, metaphorically, or actually.
yeah.
But in response to what you were saying, okay, we're the only ones who don't have the manual. I mean, the flowers, the plants are working entirely on instinct, aren't they? Without the self-awareness. So they can't freestyle, I think I'll just, do this in a way that humans can. Free will, if you want, call it free will as much as we might want to call it, self-awareness. And we're the ones who find out what works backwards, if you like. So I think the animals and the plants find out what works because they just do what works. They don't have a choice.
Mm,
We have a choice to do what doesn't work, which then reveals what does work. That's how I think it works for human beings. Because we
mm,
can always use that test. How's that working for you? And the human hubris is so great that people will say things that aren't clearly working do work because just because it's a mental theory, they'll
mm.
defend a mental theory and an ideology to the death
Yeah.
rather than
You'd
appear
rather
wrong.
die than change your
Yeah, and to
mind.
me, that's not very functional or
No,
successful. If you
no.
defended an ideology to the death or killed somebody else, that
Mm,
would be my definition of it not working very well. So,
mm,
why don't you try again with that? Well, you can't if you've died, or in prison. But that we can find out and we have to find out the hard way through experience. But I think we
mm,
do. The manual is there, like in a way that a plant is a sculpture that appears, the human is a sculpture that comes from the hammer blows, like we in Shadowlands. He talks about that, doesn't he?
yeah.
I love some of the lines in
Yes.
Shadowlands with
Mm.
Anthony Hopkins. We are
We
formed
emerge
by
through the
God's. Yeah,
blows that life
yeah,
gives us.
he says God's hammer blows bring us into being and shape. And he says so many other, I don't pray to God because it changes God. I pray to God because it changes me. I think it's just
Yeah.
so much in Shadowlands. I absolutely love it. But that's what I think that's what our manual is revealed to us by
Mhm,
what works and what feels good. And I don't mean feel good in terms of happiness, as in the bought kind of happiness, but as in the intrinsic sense of joy we get. We know we're on the
mm,
right track if we're doing that. So, David, what I would question there is your mind. I mean, isn't it the mind, or is it your mind? I don't know. I think it's. I think it's the mind. When that you're talking from your body, so I would go with the body there, as in being your body. But when you get to the mind, we get into a crossover where it's not your mind. There is the mind, and you're dealing with a part of it. So if every morning you wake up, there is fresh brain matter waiting to be wired into your consciousness. Again, I think this is theoretical, isn't it? Because if I may put it to you, David, you don't know you've got a brain. How can you prove to me you've got a brain? A picture of it is not proof. How do you actually know you've got a brain? I'd have to see it pulsing in your skull to really believe you. Otherwise, everything else is just speculation, as far as I'm concerned. But that's probably a little bit too heretical or silly, maybe. I think I said the other day that some of the most spiritual moments can't be put into words. And I think you're absolutely right, Gary.
mm,
We're just clutching at straws here. And that's what we do
mm,
every Tuesday night, isn't it? We're pointing at something. We're not,
mm,
yes, like when all the noise settles down, that's when it occurs, isn't it? But it's also quite useful in some ways to be pointing at it.
mm,
Certainly if we've been pointing the wrong way. As in, I don't mean wrong in the judgmental sense. I mean in a way that isn't making us happy or causing happiness or allowing happiness. So I'm totally with you on that, Garbo. Absolutely right. You're a profound fellow. Indeed, the moon is out and bright, but I've noticed that it is partnered by what looks like a planet, maybe Mars or Jupiter. Which one is it, love?
Jupiter.
All right. Lucky to see it tonight because we had a big fire not too far away. Wow. Okay. So a smoky sky there over in Al-Vazra. I get what you mean, Carl. What is the point of spoon bending? Just why? Finger welding would be far more useful. Uri Geller, the spot welder, on his business card. Yeah, exactly. Margarita, our perception greatly influences our well-being. So true, right? There are studies in people undergoing surgery in which it has been proven that those who have a more positive approach have a better outcome. And you've
Yes.
talked, I mean, Jeff Granville, there's a whole
Mm.
thing there, isn't there, in connection with Jeff and his
Yeah.
work with the mind? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I interview someone, I've interviewed him twice, and from now on in, I'm gonna be interviewing him every 2 weeks. He's doing, a mindfulness project and working out of, Seattle Children's Hospital, and he's got a little bit of funding to, carry on studying the effects of mindfulness, in pre and post-op, for people who have surgery. And a little bit of background, his son had, a very aggressive cancer, and he needed to have a lumbar puncture to do some kind of internal exam, and they couldn't knock him out because they thought he wouldn't survive it. And so they did a procedure, and Jeff, like he didn't know anything about mindfulness. I think he'd read a meditation book years ago and had kind of forgotten about it. But in that moment, this is like the superhero in him came out, and he knew that he could get his son under in a kind of hypnosis, or a trance induced by breathing. And that's what happened. And like the surgeons they said there was nothing to lose because this little boy's life was on the line. And he did what he did, and his son survived it. And since then, they have been exploring mindfulness and pain relief and all that kind of stuff. And so if you're interested in his story, then if you go to my YouTube channel, which is Louisa Tanner Munson, the interview is there. It's called something like, I can't remember, A Parent's Worst Nightmare, How Mindfulness Saved a Life. It's quite a
Beautiful.
dynamic title, but we're exploring that, and he's teaching over the course of the next fortnightly meetings. He's teaching us different biohacks, like breathing biohacks. The last one he taught was how to drench your heart in serotonin just through breathing, and it was amazing. I felt really chilled out.
Oh, you did. You were useless after that, weren't you, for a little while? Yeah. I
So
mean,
Margarita, if you're interested in
useless in a
that,
practical sense, yeah.
yeah,
Couldn't cook
and
tea that night.
also, Margarita, I'm interviewing a guy called Robert Jardine on Tuesday, and he is he's been using like NLP and hypnosis and EFT, or emotional freedom technique, but he also has studied the work of Dr. Hamer, the late German doctor, who realized there was something called the 5 biological rules or laws of health. And it's called the German New Medicine. And he has traced dis-ease, or Dr. Hammer has traced dis-ease or disease back to an original shock, and has noticed it in brain scans. And so there's a whole science behind it, but it's really, really amazing. So if you're interested in watching that, then check that out as well, because he's willing to take, it's going to be a live show, and he's really willing to take questions. So like if you've got a question about an illness or something, he'll just say, oh, that sounds like a shock to do with this biological law, and you can clear that in this way. So yes, I love that, what you were saying. So good. Jacqueline's saying good night, and she may well have gone to bed already.
Yeah,
But
well,
good
we were
night.
rubbishing
You're
off.
still there.
Good
Thank you for
night,
joining
Jacqueline.
us.
Sweet dreams. Hope the moon doesn't affect you too much. Also, Jacqueline CDM, our natural abilities to live free have been taken away from us. Everything we need to survive is provided by Mother Earth. It's all here for us to survive without any intervention. Animals and plants just live. So true. We said this, didn't we?
Yeah.
Jacqueline,
animals
shout
and
out.
plants don't have to pay their way. We're the only creatures that work to pay. What kind of insanity is that? Sorry.
Okay.
I know animals live in little communities, and they have their little roles and things like that, but no one really has to like work in the way that we do. And there's something wrong with that. That's unnatural. It's not
completely
right.
normal, but not entirely
It's normal
natural,
to us, but there's nothing natural about it. It doesn't follow any natural law at all.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I guess I was spending tons of time checking out more of the content on your channel. Absolutely, Fiona, and it's going to get more and more. I mean, that's the other.
Yeah,
We've
there's
got a
so much
question for
more
you.
coming.
Who do you want us? These live streams shouldn't just be us either. I don't think we should
Yeah,
get people on to talk about what they do, including you, Fiona, and anybody else who wants to do that. And talking of which, yeah, Jacqueline, who just made that comment. I know there's a Silver Coast meditation in the morning, and I've just tried to find it, Jacqueline CDM, which I thought was in the Silver Coast Body and Mind group. There you go, such a thing exists. And I know that people from that group get together on a Sunday morning to do a group meditation around the bay of
amazing.
San Martino de Porto. So there is that. Silver Coast Body and Mind, I think, is the place to find out about that. But Jacqueline might put some details in there as well.
Please do put the
Very
link in.
happy.
If
Yeah,
we got
very
up in
happy to
time, we'd
mention
come and
anything.
join you.
Yeah,
Sounds
I mean,
lovely.
yes, but with like 3 young kids, it's going to be that
Throw off
really
the
probably
energy.
wouldn't be. Yeah, that'll be quite a test of people's mindfulness, I think. I
Fiona
believe,
Worrell's put it. Oh, I'm glad you shared that. Go
yeah,
on.
some people do have superpowers or magical abilities. For instance, people who can accurately douse for water using only rods. Yeah, and I think a lot of us can do that, can't we? I mean, some people get really good at it, but you can with a couple of twigs. That's well, unless I've got a gift. I mean, I've done that, and I think it's amazing. And I just think it's to do
Mm.
with the forces of nature that you're tuning into there. But yeah, the people who are really good at it are extraordinary, aren't they? The people who turn up at your house to do a borehole and just get a couple of copper rods out to start the process. That's amazing. There are many other examples. Indeed, there are as well. Gary, I met. Oh, hold on. Just before we go there, Gary, 11 Sunday morning meditation, San Martino de Porto. How do you
Fantastic.
find the people? I mean, I know ultimately you would see a group of people probably sat in a
Looking filled
meditative
out.
posture. Yeah, but where do you tend to meet there, Jacqueline CDM? If you want to say more about that, or
Mm.
do you just tune in when you get into the bay and you find them? I also met a really interesting Irish lady, Debbie, who I think Louisa knows. She was so open to nature and the spiritual world, and her mindset made me feel junior league. That's a good thing as well, isn't it, Gary? Room, room to grow. Plenty of room for development for me, I think. You might be doing yourself a disservice there, mate, but I think it's nice to meet people who just kind of get you to
Yeah.
question that as well, isn't it?
Oh, what I
Um,
really love is when I meet younger people that it comes really naturally to, because
oh, yeah.
for
Little
lots of
buggers.
us, um, it's taken us a lifetime to really like drop the routine, realize, have one of those realizations that we don't want to work in a factory or do our 9 to 5 jobs for 15 years. And then there's these lovely people, these younger people who always have been really sort of connected, and they don't have any resistance to it either. So, until I met Carl, I'd been really fighting some of my nature, I think, and hiding who I really am because I didn't feel like I fitted in. A bit like what Fiona, was it Fiona saying that?
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, I think so.
yeah. And sometimes you need the right people around you, but because we have these resistances to really being ourselves and owning who we are and kind of owning our shadow about it as well. And yet these amazing youngsters that it just comes completely naturally to, and I'm in awe
Yeah.
of them. I love them so much.
That just reminds me mischievously of sort of personal rewilding, reconnecting with our real nature and sort of big hairy armpits and hairy legs. An area. I'm not, saying either way what Louisa does with that because that's up to her to say that. But it's just Gary was talking about. We had a lovely conversation on Friday, didn't we, about rewilding the mind.
There's
And
my
I
armpit.
wanted. There we
There's no
go. There's the proof. But she does one of each. She does one of each just for comparison. The placebo, no, the beta group, and the modern woman, and the hunter-gatherer version. But yeah, rewilding the mind on Friday. If you didn't see that, check out Gary's. Feel free, Gary, to put in the link straight to the video,
Yeah,
and we
please
talked about
do.
it obviously on Friday. But rewilding the body is quite a brave step, isn't it? And I know, we've got
Mm.
friends who are doing it, aren't they? Like not washing their hair, and
Yeah.
body hair is an interesting thing as well, isn't it? And how often people wash and so on. That's an interesting experiment, that, and that's probably the biggest, isn't it? It's really, it's kind of cool and socially acceptable to do mindfulness, but if you turn up as to friends you haven't seen for a while, so they don't recognise you because you look like Tom Hanks from Castaway, and you say, "I'm just rewilding my body," and I've got my friend Wilson here with me. I don't hope you don't mind. I brought him along to the barbecue. I mean, that's another step, isn't it? The rewilding of the body, but slowly but surely. I'm sure that's that. When you say the plants and the animals don't have to pay, if we're going to do that, you've got to follow through on that level as well. I would have thought. And who's brave enough to do that? I don't know. Are you thinking about it now?
Yeah. Yeah.
You really were thinking about that far too much. And in some ways, I
Yeah.
wish I hadn't mentioned it.
No,
Okay.
I mean, I'm always really staggered. I mean, every now and again we might manage to catch a bit of British telly, and there's that awful
Oh,
program,
Naked Attraction. You're
that we
talking about, aren't you?
cannot stop watching. Like if it's
Yeah.
on, we're almost aghast. Like we can't. I mean, has anyone else seen that program, Naked Attraction? Oh my goodness!
Look, I'm so sorry. Maria's just turned up to find us. She's tuned into Spiritual Portugal, and these two
We're talking about Naked
these two
Attraction.
people are now talking about Naked Attraction. Yeah, context. It's all about context, isn't it?
Hi, Maria. Thanks for joining us. There's this program called Naked Attraction where, like, there'll be a guy who wants to meet a woman, and there'll be 6 women all naked, stood in boxes with like glass fronts, and he will choose who he goes on the date with according to what they look like. And then they do it the other way around, and it's basically people choosing to date someone based on how they look naked. But I'm always really shocked at how unwild the bodies are. So completely the other end. We were just talking, Maria, about rewilding the body, and how there is a new trend of that, where people are having a really, really natural body. In fact, just the way it's meant to be, really. And then there's these people on these programs who have done the complete opposite. And I'm fascinated by it and slightly alarmed by it.
You can't switch it off.
Yeah. It's like car
Sometimes.
crash TV,
Yeah. Well, Gary's the full moon's probably helping tonight as well. Gary, quite capable of rewilding himself and creating the missing link. So it's so great. Dinosaur footprints in Portugal and remnants of the Yeti spotted in Alvagra as well. We meet outside. Oh, here we go. We know this. We went to this restaurant recently,
we ate there
Jacqueline,
just
for the
a
first
couple of
time.
weeks ago.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting and tasty. We meet outside the restaurant on the last roundabout, the far end of the bay by the sand dune. So yes, this is a really good description. The restaurant looks like a dinosaur ribcage. That's what we've called it.
That's what we say to our kids. Look, there's the dinosaur restaurant.
The dinosaur restaurant. That's right. It does look like a big T-Rex skeleton. I only do landmarks just before 11 o'clock. So that part. So you can walk down the boardwalk to that part of the beach there. That's where they are. Love to see you there. Best I go to bed. Night, guys. Sleep well. Igualmente, right back at you there, Jacqueline CDM. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate it. And on that note, I think we've been here for 90 minutes, Mrs. So,
oh my word!
Yeah, flies by, doesn't it? So, do you want to just give a shout out to your upcoming schedule for this week?
Yeah. Tomorrow night I'm releasing a video. Can't remember what it's called, but it's an interview with
Smida.
I've forgotten her name.
Smita Joshi.
The lady you interviewed 10 years ago.
Smita Joshi.
Yes, that's right. It's the video is, or the interview is called "Be More of Who You Are." So I interviewed a fairly well-known author and yoga teacher, yogini, meditation teacher called Smita Joshi, sorry. And so I was sort of listening into her perspective on how you can be more of who you are. Then on Tuesday, I'm interviewing the lovely Robert Jardine, and like I said, that's live, so that's worth
from Trainspotting. I just when I hear his name, I just like Robert Jardine who made his name in the 80s movie, or was it 90s? Robert Jardine in Trainspotting. Not that one.
No. And on Wednesday morning, I'm having my weekly catch up with my good friend Rick Purcell, who is a spiritual mentor and also just very sort of like down to earth realist. But we talk about different subjects each week, and he's in Bali and I'm in Portugal, and we just like catch up, and just join us. It's really nice if you're interested. Last week we spoke about projections and mirrors and how they work and stuff. And I have no idea what we're going to talk about this week. And then on Friday, I'm doing an interview with someone called Helena Chintu, who has a site called Venus Health Academy, and we have our monthly forecast. So I look at the astrology for the month ahead. So I've got quite a busy week ahead on top of all my client work, and probably Tuesday night we're going to be hooking up as well. So
oh yeah, we are, aren't we? I
there's
mean,
lots to see.
that is episode 2 of
Yeah.
Spiritual Portugal,
But
and this is
actually,
why.
before we go,
Go on.
we've done
Yeah.
so many references tonight to our personality, like dropping away and calming the noise inside our brains and things like that. And it absolutely ties into the interview that I had, the chat. I have a monthly catch up with Tanya TC Aila, who is a Portuguese mentor. She's an ISNIS mentor. So she mentors people on really getting to the core of who they are, and she's a beautiful person. And every month we hook up and we just talk about things. And we were talking, we had a show called Wholeness 101 yesterday, and she was talking about her silence retreat. So she does a 5-day retreat with people from all over the world, and she just did one on her own in this last month. And we were talking about what we learn from silence and from our personalities dropping away. And it was a really great chat. So if you're interested in that, we just got some amazing sort of like nuggets of information, but also it felt like a transmission, because afterwards I came up to you, Carl, I was chatting to you, and you said, "Oh my God, you're a different person." I was like beaming. I was so relaxed. It was a really lovely conversation. So there's lots of things coming to this channel, I guess. And if there's anything else you want to see, just let us know. I've got lots of
Yeah,
things
we'll try.
planned in the
We're happy
diary.
to approach. We're happy to approach people for an interview, or if it's you, come on and talk
Yeah,
about it.
definitely.
I love this Cindy B. When I plugged into Expats Portugal, I never dreamed I'd find my tribe, but it seems I have.
Oh,
So anxious to get to Portugal. So I'm really pleased that this is we have quite a lot of spin-offs from Expats Portugal, because
yeah.
it's always struck me that some of the content and some of the approaches, context again, aren't quite right for the kind of mainstream show every morning, and we have little tasters of it. And then I think just for full on, people who are completely comfortable talking about mind, body, spirit, spirituality, new agey types. And I know all of these are loose terms that no one should get too attached to, but it seems that this is good spin-off, so we can have complete immersion. And for me, on a Sunday night, I work with Donna Jacqueline from our community, who we live with here, and we talk very openly about God and her well, what is it? I was going to call it a belief system, but it's just how she lives. How she endeavors to live her life according to Scripture. And I talk to her every Sunday about that. And that's another spin-off from Expats Portugal. I'm thinking, and then there's the Man Cave. There are all these little spin-offs and places that people can find their tribe. I think it's wonderful. Simon saying, "Thank you, great show, guys. We'll be going on the trampoline after the show and watching the stars together." That's fantastic.
Oh, that's such a great thing, Simon. The full moon is exactly at 1:01 p.m. I mean, sorry, 1:01 p.m. or a.m. Hang on, maybe I've got that wrong.
I think it's
No,
amazing.
it's 1:01 p.m. In my head, I had it as a.m. So yeah,
it's already happened, or it's happening. Okay,
it's tomorrow.
Okay.
Like just on 1.
When you can't see it. Okay. And euphemism or not, going on the trampoline together, that's fantastic. It does sound like your life's entirely transformed there, Simon.
Yeah, sounds wonderful.
Good night, both. Dream sweetly and love passionately.
Oh, we shall do,
You
Mr. M.
rascal, Mr. Austin in Alvaca. Hope to see you soon. I hope so too. We don't need much encouragement, Gary. So but thank you for it nonetheless.
Yeah, thank you for the well-wishing, and
let's
get it on.
All.
Hey,
yes.
On the way out, you did mention at the start, didn't you, about your like brief moment of fame? I did post the video.
You'll get us banned if we play play video.
Okay.
But actually,
there is a link to it. If anyone's interested,
you asked me why it was I joined my first cult, and it was
Oh,
not
yeah.
because of that video. It was because of what I experienced as a result of, so-called fame. And
Yeah.
it was like being on top of the pops and
Mm.
being chauffeur driven to the top of the pop studio. You would think, wouldn't you, that's the jackpot. And it
Yeah.
really wasn't, and it was so disappointing I mean, it was great an experience, but it was so disappointing that wasn't like, "Oh my god, I've made it, and everything's plain
Mm.
sailing from here," at the ripe old age of 22. And I did become quite miserable, I have to say, and in quite a spin. And, that's what is it? It's an Oscar Wilde quote, isn't it? If you want to make someone unhappy, give them what they want. And that is us. That's us human beings. The ones who know how to ask questions, but not necessarily how to answer them. That's like
Mm.
a life question, isn't it? This is what you wanted. Here it is. Now what are you going to do? And we see, don't we? We see not that, not that, not that. And again, it's the hammer blows of the
Mm.
master sculptor chipping away until, I like to think of myself as a perfectly formed Michelangelo's David. But I'll let you be the judge of that in about 10 minutes, if you like.
Wow, you are my David, yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, thanks, folks. Really appreciate it. Your forbearance, your patience, and attendance. It is such a um, honor, really, to be talking on a live stream and have people sharing comments and communicating with us.
Mm.
Really, really grateful for you being there and doing that. And we look forward to being and doing it again soon. Have a great weekend. Last word
Yeah,
to you,
thank you
Mrs. M.
so lots of love to you. Thanks for joining us. Sleep well. Love passionately using, Gary's, comment, and hopefully
All
we'll
right.
connect again soon. Lots of love.
Yeah, get your naked bodies bathed in the full moonlight. See
Should
what
we do
trouble
that? Let's do it.
see what trouble that can get you into. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.